Happy April. Thought it'd be time to look at some accessibility. Just recently saw a link for the WCAG 2.2. The accessibility guidelines group have released some new updates with some changes, more about priority changes about certain features. It might be a good time to look at accessibility in the web, its state, and some quick wins and easy things we can do in web accessibility. Seems like a common thing that people talk about it as accessibility being this thing you have to get done, or you have to get round to fixing, or have to do. There's a common complaint about people don't address their accessibility, their websites aren't accessible enough. It ends up becoming this unit, a little bit like the Lighthouse scores, and you're like, is it SEO strong? Is it performant? Is it accessible? As in, these are checkboxes you want to be able to just tick off and go, yes, it's passed the test. But really, it seems more like a accumulation of things. You might find your site is generally accessible with a few flaws, or you might find it's completely inaccessible, or you might find it's somewhere on a range. Like your site is not just performant or not performant, it's kind of somewhere along the line. The reason it often falls down is because when you're learning, it's not important. Everything you're doing is just hello world. You're just trying to generate something on a screen, and you know everything you do is throwaway and it's not meant to be used by anyone. So it doesn't really matter to you about whether it's accessible by all people on all browsers. Then as you get further along the things you're learning, your instinct is to just build the thing as quickly as possible and get a working version. So you're not always thinking in that very gradual scale about how can we make this scalable and usable. Then there's the actual problem of companies don't see a profit in it because of, you're talking about, should we do some extra work which won't deliver features, but it will help a very small percentage of people use a site. So again, when you see it as this feature, or you see it as this thing you have to bolt on rather than just part of your general practices, it's easy to see accessibility falling away and people not prioritize it. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. It could just be in your mindset as part of your developmental learning to make sites generally navigable and easy to use. Let's have a quick look through these guidelines. There's a few recent updates which will be done. There's a few updates that will come in later this year, really just about what standards, what goes from AA to A in terms of priorities and importance. The first thing is about this focus visible, which has kind of been a long-standing one. Obviously, if you have if you tab through elements, it's quite nice to have that little outline to see what the currently highlighted element is. But sometimes people hate how it looks when you click on an element and you kind of have that grey border. So they set like a CSS outline none. And this is like your HTML is accessible by default. The solution here is just to not do that. There are ways around it. You can use certain plugins and libraries. It might even be a CSS solution now that it will only show if you tab to it, but not if you click it. So this is a very solvable one, and it's a case of just the way to build this into your accessibility in your development is just to not do the bad thing. What's interesting is they also suggest you could even do the hide, but just make a border around the element. It could be 8 pixels or greater, or do a color change with a certain contrast. So they even give you leeway of not saying you have to do this, but they're just saying that make something visible, and that's not about helping people with disabilities or with poor eyesight. That's just about being sensible in general. Make sure people with eyes, people who want to look at things, are also going to be able to benefit. Section here about pointer target spacing. So just leave room around elements that are focusable. So small targets that are less than 44 pixels must have a box around them, have something that's useful. Make sure you've got padding on all sides of the element to make them clickable. Like enhancing a clickable area, again, this is not about helping people using screen reader devices or something like that. This is just common practical stuff. I'm thinking of was an article a few years back, Unexpected Accessibility Tips, which is just saying here are some good ways to just test how easy to use your website is. It suggests things like test while riding on the train, or how easy is it to hit the right button on your phone while you're kind of being jolted. What about you ask people when they're in a hurry, how quickly can they analyze a website and make decisions? Hold your mobile with straight arms so you can't see it as easily. Use a projector for low lighting. There are just loads of these kind of ideas that are kind of, you don't have to have some special software, you don't need to get a select group of people with certain range of disabilities. They're just saying throw yourself in a few scenarios where it's slightly more difficult to use your website, and just how difficult is it if you don't have a perfect keyboard, sat down, still concentration situation. These things are probably overlooked in the design stages. So it's just in practice, these are some things you could think about with your website. And it also moves away from accessibility is often bundled with this idea of making your website for disabled people. Really, it's just about making your website as good as possible, making it accessible, making it easy to use, making it a good user experience. And I think if you had that mindset more than seeing it as like this thing we have to bolt on, it would just mean it's easier for people to make good, practical websites. But make sure you put everything in the right place. So make sure that your phone, your chat bot is in the same corner or the same part of the website. I mean, I guess that's just a good design principle. And again, it's not about people with disabilities and things so much as just everyone would appreciate websites that are more predictable, more intuitive. Allow people to paste their user details in or use plugins, because of having to type them out is a faff. Again, this is just common sense stuff. Yeah, so this made just a little take on that. When people look at accessibility updates, these things you run through are like fairly easy to just build into your everyday habits. Perhaps you don't have to. Sometimes people neglect accessibility, think I'm going to have to go off and learn a whole thing about how to make a skip to content button. I'm going to have to make all kinds of ARIA roles. I'm going to have to do a whole overhaul and refactor my code to make it really accessible. And actually, just having some awareness of some simple things you can integrate into your work can have big impact in terms of the accessibility of your site. We'll do some more accessibility videos, but that's all for today. Please let me know any thoughts, any links, any useful stuff in the comments. See you around.